And I'm back in the room. Okay, so what I want to do now, uh, I'm in edit mode, but I can still control my objects by going Command on the Macintosh, click. So I'll turn that metronome off. What I want to do now is a new object called NoteOut. What NoteOut does is it sends MIDI notes out to an external synthesizer. Double click on it in lock mode, and I've got choices. From Max 1 and from Max 2, well, I can send things to and from Max. I haven't got any external MIDI interfaces connected to this computer, so it's going to AU DLS Synth 1, which is a standard general MIDI synthesizer. So what I want to do is to be able to send MIDI notes to that synthesizer. However, it's a bit complicated. I have to send it a pitch or MIDI note number, a velocity, and a channel number. Wiring this all up to make that work could be a bit bothersome. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use an object called MakeNote. I'm going to put two numbers there. I'm going to explain in a second what these numbers are. I'm also going to put a little message box up here. I used in an earlier movie a message box that said hello, which wasn't understood by the LED. Here I'm actually going to put the message being the number 36. Now what happens? I send this 36 to MakeNote, and it actually sends out the bottom with pitch output and velocity output, both a note on and a note off. Watch, you'll only be able to hear this quietly because you're hearing it recorded out of my speakers into my microphone. I turn the volume all the way up, that'll help. Okay, so how do I get a note out of all that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two print left and Alt, drag, print right objects. What does a print object do? If it receives anything on its inlet, anything to be printed in the Max window, which is over there. So I can actually send the number that comes out of there and the number that comes out of there over to these print boxes. Note, they're still going to the NoteOut. It's just that they're going over to the print boxes as well. I'm going to change this 500 to be 3000 so I can explain what's going on. Watch what happens in the window over here as I play the note. Okay, you see, first right, then left, 136, then 0, 36. This is a note on with a velocity of 100 and a note off, which occurs 3 seconds later, with a velocity of 0. So, how did that happen? Well, I sent in the number 36, and that's the same note number that has appeared over here. It hasn't been told which velocity to use. So in actual fact, this becomes the default velocity. And since there's nothing connected to this inlet to change velocity, it will stay the velocity of the notes that come out. This 3000 says, if you receive a number here, make a note on, which has got the velocity, positive, and the note number, and 3 seconds later, or 3000 milliseconds later, send the note off. So very conveniently, a single number can become a note. We can, for example, use the key slider object, which looks like a keyboard. Well, what does it do? I'll show you what it does. Like the toggle button, looks complicated, but actually just sends out ones and zeros. The key slider object just sends out single integers. And you can see if you look over here, it's sending note-ons and note-offs. So very quickly, we can make it play music. How is it playing music? Well, this key slider isn't doing anything fancy. All it's doing is sending out integers. Okay, you can also send out a velocity, but that's a little bit complicated and I won't describe it now. But I'm just using the note numbers. Okay, what happens is an integer comes out, it goes into the integer box, solely so we can see what it is. If an integer comes into an integer box, it changes the integer displayed, and then the same integer comes out the bottom. So the integer is getting from the keyboard, through the integer box, Then it's sent down to the make note. The make note sends out both note number and velocity, and a little while later sends out a note off. So very quickly, we can have music. I'm going to get rid of the key slider and produce the note numbers in a different way. First, I'm going to make an object called random. It's got two arguments. The range I'm going to make to be 24. I'm not going to change the second argument. So a random number, 24 is the range, and a bang button I connect up here. What does the random object do? This random object, because I gave it a range of 24, will produce a random number between 0 and 23 inclusive. The 24 is exclusive, it's the range. When does it produce a random number? If it receives a bang on its inlet. If I bang it, a random number will come out of the bottom, go into the integer box, come out of the integer box. We could have plugged it straight in, but I want you to see the numbers. Out of the integer box into the make note. The make note will create both note number and velocity, which goes to the note out and makes a note. So, definitely piano, but very low notes. So I want these notes to be higher. What can I do? Well, one thing I can do is this. I'm going to send this into a +0 box. Why 0? It's because I'm being evil and I want to show you something. Okay, it's exactly the same. Still far too low. Why? Well, because this is a +0 box, what it does is it takes two numbers, the number received on the left and the number received on the right, and it adds them together, and the sum of them comes out the bottom. I haven't connected anything up to this inlet, the right-hand one, and so therefore, the number that comes in here, 0 is added to it, and then comes out the bottom. But if we add 0 to anything, it's the same number. That's why it's no different. So what I want to do is to make an integer box, connect it up to this inlet, and then I can change how much I'm adding. Still the same as it was, but if I add 48, or if I add 60, you can hear the random numbers are now changed. Note, you have to start learning how the objects work. If a number comes on the left, it's added to the number received from the right and goes out the bottom. If a number comes in from the right, nothing happens. When I do this, I'm actually scrolling, I'm clicking and dragging. I can scroll the number up and down very quickly. It's actually sending out very large numbers of numbers. But these aren't going through because it only produces, the plus box only produces an output when it receives something on the left, which it then adds to the most recent number it received on the right. Far too high. And sends out the bottom. So to make Max work, one thing you've got to do is to understand very, very carefully how objects work. They do quite often seem to work in the same way, because people deliberately write that to make it easier to make things in Max. For example, a lot of mathematical objects will only send an output when they receive something on the leftmost input or inlet, and the other ones, such as the right one here, won't make an effect. Another thing is that if we have numbers that come out of two inlets, more or less at the same time, they come out of the rightmost one first, and then the leftmost one. And knowing this allows you to patch things and wire them up so they work well. So this is basically the end of this movie. But it's going to continue on in the next one, and I'll start doing something a bit more interesting. Because I'm going to start taking these little bits and pieces I've done and wiring them up together. Okay, thank you very much, and hopefully see you in the next one.